So walk us through what's on tap in the Southern District of New York that sort of moves the story forward, maybe not so positive for President Trump.
Well, so there are at least two investigations going on in the Southern District of New York, criminal investigations that we know about. The first involves Michael Cohen and the payments that were made to the women who alleged they had affairs with the president, and Michael Cohen arranged for money to be paid to these women in exchange for them keeping quiet, and they've been referred to as the hush money payments. And the Southern District of New York considers those payments to be violations of the campaign finance laws. That's part of what Michael Cohen pled guilty to. And the Southern District of New York has said in open court that President Trump, without naming him as such, directed Michael Cohen to make these payments. And so if they pursue that further, that could be legal jeopardy for the president. We'd get into the question of whether a sitting president could be indicted or whether this would be something deferred until the president was out of office, perhaps, and also whether other people involved in the Trump organization were part of the scheme, if you will, to orchestrate those payments. So that's investigation number one that we know about. Just the first one that we know about for sure.
Right.
The second one we know about is into the inaugural committee and what monies were coming into that inaugural committee, including whether or not any donations were being made by foreign entities, which is unlawful under the campaign finance laws, and also how money was being spent. And so that's a whole additional realm of investigation. The Southern District sent a very wide-ranging subpoena to the inaugural committee I think about a month ago now.
Right.
And among the crimes that were cited in that subpoena as being under investigation included wire fraud, money laundering. So that appears to be a wide-ranging investigation.
Jessica, Robert Mueller's investigation started out looking into Russian meddling into the elections, and it branched out into a lot of other things. How might we expect these investigations going on in New York for the same thing to happen?
That's a great question. Investigations do have a tendency to, if you will,
open up Pandora's box.
Right. Especially when you have people like Michael Cohen, who's trying to cooperate with prosecutors on an ongoing basis, who have a wealth of information about the Trump organization, Mr. Trump, and members of his family and his inner circle. And so he can lead them in different directions. The documents that were obtained in Michael Cohen's office during the search warrants, those will lead them in different investigations, as well as when they get the documents back from the inaugural committee. We also know the Southern District has been seeking to interview members of the Trump organization about a range of topics. Michael Cohen testified before Congress that Mr. Trump and his organization were involved in things like insurance fraud and tax fraud. And so all these are directions that the investigation could go in.
So if Mueller's investigation took 22 months, in your experience, the prosecutor there, how long could this thing take?
This could take years. 22 months for a complex investigation of the type that Mr. Mueller was investigating is actually not that long. These things can take years to develop. So I think that we're looking at several years further out, potentially.
Is there also consideration with the 2020 elections that for any kind of investigation, any kind of outcome, they've either got to do it, I don't know, 6 months beforehand or have to wait until the 2020 election?
So prosecutors are not going to be
as sensitive to that?
Well, they're going to be sensitive. There is a Department of Justice memo that directs prosecutors to be sensitive to things that could impact an election.
Right.
The memo in question, though, actually speaks about election-related crimes, though, under investigation. That has sometimes been interpreted more broadly to suggest that you shouldn't take any action that could impact an election within a certain window. So prosecutors will be sensitive to that. But they're also going to be very clearly doing their job independent of political considerations. So there's a bit of a tension there, right? They're trying to do their job professionally without thinking about the political ramifications. At the same time, when we get close to an election, they do need to be sensitive to not doing something that would untowardly or unfairly impact the election.